This story is a personal experience. It happened when I was still in college. Let's just call me David. We were 5 close friends: Jade, Christy, Mark, Michael, and myself. The story began when we had a new classmate in college. Let's hide their real names and refer to them as Maxine and Wendy. They were kind and enjoyable to be around, and they often helped us with our assignments and projects. Sometimes, they even treated us, so we became very close to them and trusted them completely. We shared many adventures together, especially hiking mountains and going on trips to different places because we all loved outdoor activities. One day, they invited us to their village because their town was about to have a festival. We were curious about where they lived, and since we had full trust in them, we agreed to visit their village during our semester break when we had plenty of free time. The next day, we went to their village, taking a bus and then walking for 4 to 5 hours until we reached their place. It was a remote area surrounded by trees and nature, a place we had never been to before. We arrived in the evening, and they led us to a small hut, next to Maxine and Wendy's house, where we would be staying. It seemed like that was where they usually accommodated guests. Thankfully, we brought some food with us because it was already late at night, and we didn't want to be a bother. By the way, I forgot to mention that it was Monday night when we arrived. We planned to stay there for a week as the festival would be celebrated on Saturday. The next afternoon, Tuesday, Jade and I roamed around the entire village. It was a small community with only a few families living there. While we were fetching water from a clean well, an elderly woman approached us. She was struggling to fetch water, so I helped her with the task, carrying the water containers to her hut, which was nearby. As I returned to where Jade was, the old woman asked, "Are you the new friends of Maxine and Wendy?" "Yes, that's us. We heard that the festival here is coming soon," I replied. The old woman spoke again, "If I were you, I'd leave before Saturday comes." "Excuse me, what do you mean?" I asked curiously. However, she didn't say anything else and just turned around, heading back into her house with the water containers. I was left wondering because since we arrived in that place, something felt different, and the old woman's words added to my unease. When I returned to our hut, I shared what the old woman said to the others. "Are you serious, David? Instead of enjoying the beautiful environment and nature here, you're overthinking things. You should be ashamed of yourself for suspecting Maxine and Wendy," Mark retorted. "Yeah, you're being so weird," Christy added. "Maybe you should listen to me." While Jade and I were fetching water, I talked to an old woman, and she told us to leave before Saturday, before the festival. I insisted. They all fell silent and then burst into laughter. "Come on, David, just go to sleep. You're saying all sorts of things," Michael teased. They teased me the whole night, but luckily, Jade was on my side. After that, we slept. The next day was Wednesday, and we didn't leave the hut. We spent the entire day joking, sharing stories, and playing games. When it was dinner time, Jade and I noticed something strange. It had been 3 days already, but Maxine and Wendy were still serving us canned food. I asked them several times if they had any vegetables or fruits, considering they lived in a rural area, but they said they only had canned goods and noodles for guests. What was even stranger was that they kept the canned goods and noodles in a man-made cave. Despite all that, we didn't question it too much because Maxine and Wendy were so kind that we couldn't think ill of them. As the night deepened, they returned to their own houses, and we went to sleep as well. Maybe around 1 a.m., I couldn't sleep, I heard something strange. It sounded like the call or chirping of a bird, but I wasn't sure. My friends were already asleep. I got up from my bed and looked around, peering through the gaps and glancing through the windows of our hut. I was surprised to see Jade awake. "Hey David, lie down, or she might hear you," Jade warned. I ignored Jade's advice and slowly stood up to glance out of the window. My eyes widened, and I took a step back in shock at what I saw. There was a creature that resembled a bird due to its wings. It had a horrifying appearance, as if its flesh was decaying. It had no feathers and emitted a foul smell. I was about to scream when Jade covered my mouth. Fortunately, I managed to restrain myself from screaming. Then we went back to lying down and covered ourselves with a blanket. I was deeply shaken during those moments. My knees were trembling, and I became even more frightened by what Jade said. "You must never make any noise when you see something like that. It might become aggressive and attack you." "Why? What is that, Jade?" I asked. "My grandma said that's what a swan bird looks like," Jade replied. For those who are unaware, the aswang is a mythical creature found in the Philippines. They disguise themselves as humans to victimize others. They consume both humans and animals. They also have the ability to transform into different forms such as a carabao, bird, pig, or dog, depending on their level of knowledge in black magic or dark arts. The next day, Jade and I remained quiet, unable to forget the fear I felt when I saw that creature. Our friends were puzzled as we seemed down. We simply told them we weren't feeling well. When Friday night came, we could no longer contain our curiosity. What really was happening in that place, or what was going on with our friends Maxine and Wendy? After dinner, we excused ourselves, saying we needed some fresh air. Maxine and Wendy warned us not to go too far and to return quickly. We roamed around the village and found a hut with its door open. We cautiously peeked inside and almost vomited at what we saw. On their table, there was a wild boar, which seemed to be dead because its neck was dripping with blood. They caught the blood using a basin and quickly drank it. They seemed to relish the fresh blood. After the blood was gone, the person we assumed was their head of the family signaled, and they all feasted on the lifeless boar with their sharp teeth and claws. They effortlessly tore the boar's meat apart, and the entire family seemed to enjoy every bite. Jade and I couldn't bear what we witnessed. We quickly ran away from that hut and vomited our barely digested dinner. We hurried back to our hut, thankful that Maxine and Wendy weren't there. We shared in detail what we had witnessed with our friends, but like before, they laughed at us again. Jade and I didn't hesitate. We packed our things and left quickly, walking through the dark fields, hills, and streams, not even stopping when we felt exhausted. As we were running, we encountered a mother and child, along with an elderly woman. "It's late, where are you going?" the mother asked. "We're leaving, we don't want to stay here anymore," I replied. "It's good that you're leaving before the festival begins on Saturday," the mother said again. Jade and I were puzzled and asked, "Why? Why do we need to leave before the festival? What's happening with your festival?" The mother didn't answer. Instead, the elderly woman with them glared at her. I could see fear in her eyes. We decided to leave it be and continued our departure. When we felt tired, we chose to walk instead. We were quite far from our original village. Suddenly, we heard rustling nearby. We weren't sure where it was coming from, but it seemed close. We didn't waste any time and ran again, this time with Jade stumbling. she was immediately pulled by something chasing us. As much as I wanted to help her, there was nothing I could do. I no longer had enough strength to fight whatever creature that was. I turned away from Jade. I couldn't bear to see what that creature would do to her. Gasping for breath, I ran away from them as far as I could. After a few hours, I found myself walking aimlessly. My feet were numb, and tears continued to stream down my eyes. I didn't know if I was still on the right path, but I couldn't stop. The sun rose again, and I regained some strength to see the town where we first landed in the distance. Using whatever energy I had left, I ran towards it, looking for someone to ask for help. The local guard noticed me immediately and took me to their municipal hall. There, I narrated everything that had happened to me, without caring whether they would believe me or not. To my surprise, they called the police right away. "Wait, don't you believe me? Everything I said is true," I said. "Calm down, my child. We are on your side, and we believe you. We're calling the police because we'll need their help," they reassured me. That's the last thing I remember before losing consciousness at that moment, probably due to my prolonged running. I woke up a week later in the hospital. The police officer talked to me, and my tears fell again when he informed me that no one, not even one of my friends, was seen in the village I came from. He said that the village I visited was called Forgotten Land, but it only had people during their festival. They were looking for potential victims whom the creatures would feast on during the festivities. After the festival, the creatures would disappear, and no one knew where they went. Before leaving, the police officer gave me my friends' IDs, stained with blood. That was all they found in the village. This happened in the 1980, and until now, my friends have not been found. The last update I heard about the Forgotten Land was that the mayor ordered the burning of all the huts and houses there to prevent any more victims from falling prey to those creatures.